She hid where no wolf dared go. They found her anyway, and they weren't leaving without her. The village sat at the edge of the world. No paths led to it. No smoke rose from settlements beyond the frozen peaks, just snow, endless and silent, and a sky so heavy with winter it made her feel like the last soul breathing. That was the point. Lyria Moonwhisper pressed her forehead against the frost-cracked stone wall and let out a slow breath. Her ribs still ached from 5 days of running. Her cloak was torn at the hem. Her hair hung in dark tangles across her shoulders, smelling of pine smoke and desperation. But she was here and no one knew. She stepped deeper into the abandoned house and let the broken door creak shut behind her. The air was frozen, thick with the scent of old stone and forgotten things. A single window let in a shaft of pale gray light. The floor was buried under years of snow that had blown through the cracks. There was a collapsed hearth in the corner, a wooden bench split down the middle, a doorframe that led to nothing. It wasn't much. It was enough. Lyria dropped her pack against the wall and sank onto the bench. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them together hard until the trembling stopped. She'd made it. 5 days, 5 nights, no scent trail, no bond mark. No alpha dragging her back to a ceremony she never agreed to. Her chest tightened. They said it was destiny. They said every Omega should be grateful to be chosen. They lied. She closed her eyes and let the silence settle over her like a shroud. Out here there were no pack laws, no elders, no eyes watching her every move waiting for her to bow. Out here she could breathe. For the first time in weeks her heartbeat slowed. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes maybe or hours. Time felt different in the cold. Then she heard it. A sound. Soft, deliberate. Footsteps. No, pause. Many of them crunching through snow. Lyria's eyes snapped open. Her pulse spiked. Her breath caught in her throat. No. No one followed me. No one could have. The sound circled the village. Pose. A low growl echoed somewhere outside, then another. Her wolf stirred deep inside her, restless and afraid. Then the pause stopped. Right outside the wall. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The window was too high. The walls too broken. If someone wanted in, they'd tear through stone to get to her. Silence stretched. Then a knock. 3 slow, measured strikes against the stone beside the window. Lyria's heart slammed against her ribs. Who knocks in a cursed village? She rose to her feet, legs unsteady, her fingers curled into fists at her sides. She took 1 step toward the window, then another. Who's there? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. No answer. Just another knock. Louder this time. Deliberate. Then a voice, deep and rough, carried through the frozen air. Little Omega. We know you're in there. She swallowed hard and moved to the broken door. Her hand hovered over the splintered wood, trembling. This is a mistake. You should have stayed hidden. But she couldn't. Not knowing felt worse than knowing. She pulled the door open and froze. 2 men stood in the snow, tall, broad-shouldered, identical in every way that mattered. Dark hair streaked with frost. Eyes like molten amber. Scars carved across their faces and bare chests, as if they'd been forged in battle and tempered by ice. Wolves, dozens of them, stood at their backs, circling the ruins, waiting. The one on the left tilted his head, his gaze pinning her in place. You don't belong here, Omega, he said, his voice a low rumble that sent a shiver down her spine. The one on the right stepped forward, close enough that she could see the frost clinging to his eyelashes. But we do, he said. This territory is ours. And now so are you. Lyria's wolf stirred for the first time in weeks, whispering a word that made her blood run cold. Ours. They weren't men. Not entirely. Not anymore. The one on the left was taller by half an inch, his dark hair longer, falling past his shoulders in waves crusted with ice. The one on the right had his pulled back, tied with leather, revealing a jagged scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. But their eyes were identical, storm gray, cold and ancient, like they'd seen centuries pass and remembered every wound. Alphas. Both of them. Lyria's throat closed. Her hand gripped the edge of the door so hard splinters bit into her palm. Step back, she said, her voice low and sharp. This place is forbidden. You have no right. We have every right, the one on the left interrupted, his voice cutting through the wind like a blade. This territory has been ours for 200 years. Blood oath. Sworn in fire and witnessed by the old gods. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You're the one trespassing, little Omega. Her wolf stirred, restless and wrong. It should have been cowering. It should have been silent. Instead it pushed forward, curious, drawn to them in a way that made her stomach twist. Oh, not them. Anyone but them. I didn't know, Lyria said, forcing her voice steady. I'll leave. No. Just let me. You misunderstand. The one on the right stepped forward, boots crunching in the snow. His presence was overwhelming, a wall of heat and power that pressed against her even from feet away. We're not asking you to leave. Her pulse hammered. Then what do you want? The two exchanged a glance, something unspoken passing between them. Then the taller one smiled, slow and deliberate, and it was the most dangerous thing she'd ever seen. You, he said simply. Lyria's breath hitched. She took a step back, then another, but they followed, crossing the threshold into the ruined house without hesitation. The wolves behind them stayed outside, sitting in the snow like sentinels, watching. You can't just. Her back hit the stone wall. I don't belong to anyone. I won't. We know what you're running from, the scarred one said quietly, his voice softer now, almost gentle. We caught your scent weeks ago. Fear and fury and desperation. We've been tracking you ever since. Tracking me? Her voice cracked. Why? Because you're ours, the taller one said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. We knew it the moment we scented you. The bond recognized what we are to each other. There is no bond, Lyria snapped, her hands curling into fists. I don't know you. I don't want. Her wolf surged. It rose inside her like a wave, powerful and undeniable, and for one horrifying moment she felt it. The pull. The connection. The way her soul reached toward theirs like it had been waiting, starving, incomplete. Ours, her wolf whispered again, louder this time, hungry and sure. No, Lyria whispered, shaking her head. No, this isn't real. You're alphas. You're all the same. You taken. We're not him, the scarred one said, and something in his voice made her freeze. His eyes softened just a fraction. Whoever hurt you, whoever made you run, we're not him. The taller one crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to her eye level, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. My name is Kalen Stormfang, he said. This is my brother Ralix. And whether you accept it now or not, the bond has already chosen. You're ours to protect. Ours to keep. And we will never let you go. Lyria's knees threatened to buckle. Her wolf howled in agreement and she hated it. Hated herself. Hated them for making her feel something she'd sworn she'd never feel again. Get out, she whispered. Kalen's smile returned, patient and certain. We'll be right outside Little Omega. When you're ready to stop running, we'll still be here. They turned and walked back into the snow, leaving her shaking against the wall, her wolf screaming yes while her heart screamed no. She didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not with them outside. Lyria sat on the broken bench, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the door like it might burst open at any moment. The wolves had settled into the snow, dozens of them forming a living barrier around the house. She could hear them breathing, shifting, the occasional low growl when one got too close to another. And beyond them she felt the twins. Their presence pressed against her awareness like heat against skin. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt broken here. Then the door opened. Lyria was on her feet instantly, heart slamming. I told you to stay outside. Kalen stepped in first, followed by Ralix. Neither looked apologetic. Kalen carried something wrapped in cloth. Ralix held a water skin. You haven't eaten in days, Ralix said simply, setting the water skin on the crooked table. Or drunk anything but melted snow. That's not your concern. It is now, Kalen said, unwrapping the cloth to reveal dried meat and bread. Whether you like it or not. Lyria's stomach twisted with hunger she'd been ignoring. She forced herself to look away. Why are you really here? This village, it's cursed. Everyone knows the stories. No pack comes here. Ever. Kalen exchanged a glance with his brother. Then he spoke, his voice low and reverent. 200 years ago, our ancestors made a blood oath with the pack that lived here. They were slaughtered by enemies from the south. Every man, woman, and child. Our great-grandfather swore on his life that their land would never be claimed by another. that it would remain sacred, untouched. His gray eyes locked onto hers. We are bound by that oath. We guard this place. Protect its secrets. Then why didn't you stop me from entering? Because your scent reached us weeks ago, Rayleigh said quietly. Carried on the northern wind. Fear and desperation and something else. Something that called to us. He stepped closer and Lyria forced herself not to retreat. We've been searching for you ever since. That doesn't make sense, she whispered. I'm no one. Just an Omega who. You're not just anything, Kalen interrupted, his voice fierce. You're ours. The bond doesn't lie. It doesn't make mistakes. Lyria's hands shook. She clenched them into fists. I don't want a bond. I don't want to belong to anyone. That's why I ran. That's why I came here, to be free. Then we'll prove it to you, Rayleigh said. She looked up sharply. Prove what? That we're not like him. Not like whoever made you believe belonging meant losing yourself. Kalen set the food on the table and stepped back, hands raised, non-threatening. Stay with us. One night. Let us show you what it means to be chosen by alphas who see you as an equal, not property. One night, Rayleigh echoed. If you still want to leave after that, we won't stop you. It was a lie. It had to be. Alphas didn't let Omegas go. They claimed. They owned. But something in their eyes, steady, patient, sincere, made her hesitate. You sleep outside, Lyria said finally, her voice hard. Both of you. You don't come in unless I say. You don't touch me. You don't command me. If you break any of those rules, I run. And I won't stop running until I'm dead or you're gone. Kalen smiled, slow and approving. Deal. Rayleigh inclined his head. We'll be right outside the door, little Omega. If you need us, just call. They turned and left, pulling the door shut behind them with a soft click. Lyria stood alone in the frozen house, staring at the food on the table. Her stomach growled. Her wolf pushed forward, urging her to eat. To trust. She grabbed the bread and tore into it with shaking hands, hating how good it tasted. Hating how safe she felt knowing they were just outside. Hating that some part of her wanted them to stay. The storm came without warning. One moment the night was still, silent except for the wolves shifting in the snow. The next, the wind screamed like something dying, slamming against the walls with enough force to make the entire structure shudder. Snow poured through the cracks in violent white sheets, and the temperature dropped so fast Lyria's breath turned to frost in her lungs. She pulled her cloak tighter, but it did nothing. The cold bit through the fabric, through her skin, sinking into her bones. Her teeth chattered. Her hands went numb. She curled into herself on the bench, trying to make herself smaller, trying to conserve what little warmth she had left. It wasn't enough. Her body started to shut down. Fingers tingling. Limbs heavy. Thoughts slow and thick like frozen honey. She knew this feeling. Hypothermia. She'd seen wolves die from it, strong ones, healthy ones. Out here, cold killed faster than claws. She tried to stand. To move. To do something. But her legs wouldn't hold her. She collapsed back onto the bench, vision blurring. This is how it ends. Alone. Frozen. Free. The door slammed open. Rayleigh filled the doorway, snow clinging to his hair and bare shoulders, his eyes wild with something that looked like fear. He crossed the room in 2 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her. Lyria. His hands cupped her face and she flinched at the shocking heat of his touch. Gods, you're freezing. Why didn't you call for us? You promised to stay outside, she managed through chattering teeth. To hell with promises if it means you die. Kalen appeared behind his brother, carrying an armful of wood. We heard your heartbeat slowing. Your breathing. He stopped, jaw tight. We're not letting you freeze to death to prove a point. Lyria wanted to argue. To tell them to leave. But she couldn't feel her fingers anymore and the words wouldn't come. Rayleigh lifted her like she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. His body was a furnace and she hated how desperately she leaned into it. How her wolf purred with relief at the warmth, at the safety. Put me down, she whispered, but it came out weak. Pathetic. No. He carried her to the wall and sat, settling her in his lap, wrapping his arms around her. Kalen, the fire. Now. Kalen moved with brutal efficiency, clearing the broken hearth, stacking the wood, striking flint until flames caught and spread. The fire roared to life, pushing back the cold inch by inch. Rayleigh held her through it all, one hand rubbing warmth back into her arms, the other pressed against her back. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. Strong and sure and alive. You shouldn't have to survive alone, he murmured against her hair. You shouldn't have to choose between freedom and freezing to death. It was my choice, she said, but her voice cracked. Then make a different one. Kaelin crouched beside them, his hand reaching out to brush snow from her hair. Let us keep you warm. Let us keep you safe. Just for tonight. The wind howled outside, shaking the walls. The fire crackled. Rayleigh's arms tightened around her and Kaelin settled beside them, close enough that she could feel his heat too. She was surrounded. Trapped. Exactly what she'd run from. But she was warm. And for the first time in 5 days she stopped shaking. Just for tonight, Lyria whispered, closing her eyes. Rayleigh's chest rumbled with something that might have been a laugh or a promise. Just for tonight, little Omega. Outside the storm raged on. Inside she finally let herself rest. She woke to the smell of roasting meat. Lyria's eyes snapped open. She was still by the fire, wrapped in a fur she didn't remember being covered with. The storm had passed. Pale morning light filtered through the cracks in the walls, and the twins were crouched by the hearth, turning a spit over the flames. Fresh kill. Rabbit from the smell of it. Her stomach twisted with hunger so sharp it hurt. Kaelin looked up and caught her staring. You're awake. She sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. You hunted. While you slept, Rayleigh said, not looking away from the fire. You need to eat. Real food. Not the scraps you've been rationing. Lyria's jaw tightened. I was fine. You were starving yourself. Kaelin's voice was matter-of-fact, not accusing. We could smell it. Weakness. Deprivation. You were killing yourself slowly to avoid depending on anyone. The words hit too close. She looked away. Rayleigh pulled the meat from the fire and tore off a piece, the juices still running. He crossed to her and held it out. Eat. It wasn't a command. It was an offering. Simple. Kill. Lyria stared at the meat, then at his hand. Her pride screamed at her to refuse. Her body screamed louder. He took it. The first bite was heaven. Rich and warm and real. She hadn't realized how empty she'd been until now, how hollowed out. She ate like she was drowning, like the food was air, and when she finished, Rayleigh handed her another piece without a word. Kaelin watched her with something soft in his eyes. Better. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Your hands, Rayleigh said quietly. He was looking at her fingers, red and raw, the tips blackened from frostbite. Let me see them. They're fine. They're not. He reached for her before she could pull away, his touch careful, reverent. He turned her hands over, examining the damage with a frown. This could have been so much worse. Kaelin moved closer, pulling a small tin from his belt. Salve. Made from pine resin and wolf's bane root. It'll help. Rayleigh took the tin and opened it, the sharp herbal scent filling the space between them. He dipped his fingers in and began smoothing it over her damaged skin, his movements slow and deliberate. The salve burned at first, then soothed, sinking into the wounds. No one had ever touched her like this. With care. With patience. Like she mattered. Lyria's throat tightened. Why are you doing this? Because you're ours to care for, Kaelin said simply. Not to use. Not to break. To care for. Rayleigh finished with her left hand and moved to her right, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. You've spent so long believing you had to choose between freedom and being cared for. But they're not opposites, Lyria. You can have both. She wanted to argue. To tell them they were wrong. But the words died in her throat because some part of her, buried deep, starving and desperate, wanted to believe them. When Rayleigh finished, he released her hands gently. Both twins stood. We'll be outside, Kaelin said. The storm's passed. We'll sleep with the pack tonight. You don't have to, Lyria started. We made you a promise, Rayleigh interrupted. We keep our promises. They walked to the door and Lyria found herself speaking before she could stop herself. Thank you. Both twins paused. Turned. Kaelin's smile was small and genuine. Always, little Omega. They left, closing the door softly behind them. Lyria sat alone by the fire, staring at her bandaged hands, at the remaining meat on the stone beside her. For the first time in weeks she wasn't hungry. For the first time in years she wasn't alone. And it terrified her how much she wanted to keep it. She couldn't sleep. Not with the memories clawing their way up from where she'd buried them. Lyria sat by the dying fire, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the embers. The night was quiet. Too quiet. Every time she closed her eyes she saw him. The alpha her pack had chosen for her. His hand on her throat. His voice in her ear, promising ownership disguised as destiny. The door opened softly. She didn't turn. Didn't need to. She knew the weight of his footsteps. "You should be sleeping," Rayleigh said, his voice low in the darkness. "So should you." He crossed the room and sat beside her, close but not touching. "I heard your heartbeat. Racing like you're being chased." He paused. "What are you running from in here, Lyria?" "Everything. Nothing." The truth she'd never spoken aloud. The words came before she could stop them. His name was Theron Blackmaw. Alpha of the Silverpine Pack. My pack. Her voice was hollow, distant. "The elders chose him for me when I came of age. Said it was an honor. Said I should be grateful." She laughed, bitter and broken. "I told them no. I said I wanted to choose for myself. To wait. To see if..." Her throat closed. "They said I was being difficult. Ungrateful. Defective." Rayleigh went very still beside her. "Theron said he'd give me time. That he'd court me properly. But every day he pushed. Every conversation was about the bond, about my duty, about how I belonged to him whether I accepted it or not." Her hands curled into fists. "The night before the marking ceremony I told him I wouldn't do it. That I'd rather die unmated than be his." "What did he do?" Rayleigh's voice was deadly quiet. He laughed. "Said my consent didn't matter. That the ceremony would happen with or without my cooperation. That once the mark was on my skin my wolf would submit and I'd learn to accept my place." She looked down at her hands at the healing frostbite. "So I ran. I fought 3 guards to get out. Broke 2 ribs and an enforcer's jaw. And I ran." The door opened again. Kalen stepped inside, his expression dark. He'd been listening. "They called me defective," Lyria whispered. "Broken." Said no Omega in her right mind would refuse an alpha like him. Maybe they were right. Maybe I am. No. Kalen's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. He crossed to her and knelt, his hands framing her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are not defective. You are not broken. You are strong and brave and fierce for knowing your own worth." Rayleigh's hand found hers, his grip solid and sure. What he tried to do, what they all did, that was a violation. Not honor. Not destiny. Violation. "You had every right to run," Kalen said fiercely. "Every right to fight. Every right to choose." Something cracked open in Lyria's chest. Something she'd been holding closed and bleeding for months. Her vision blurred. "I thought," her voice broke. "I thought if I was strong enough, if I could just survive alone, it would prove I didn't need anyone. That I could be free." "You can be both," Rayleigh said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Free and cared for. Independent and loved. They're not opposites." Kalen leaned forward, his forehead nearly touching hers. "We swear to you," Lyria Moon whisper. "On our blood, on our bond, on every oath we've ever taken. What was done to you will never be repeated. Not by us. Not by anyone. Not while we draw breath. We choose you," Rayleigh said. "But you get to choose us back. Or not. That power is yours alone." The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Lyria didn't pull away when Kalen drew her against his chest. Didn't resist when Rayleigh's arms came around them both. She broke in their hands and they held every piece. Outside the wolves howled. Inside, for the first time since she ran, Lyria let herself be held. Dawn broke cold and clear. Lyria woke wrapped in furs, the twins on either side of her, their presence a wall of warmth and safety she'd fallen asleep against without meaning to. She should have panicked. Should have pulled away. Instead she watched them sleep, Kalen's face peaceful, the scar on Rayleigh's temple stark in the pale light, and wondered how something that terrified her could feel so right. Rayleigh's eyes opened first, finding hers immediately. "Good morning, little Omega." "You stayed," she whispered. "We'll always stay." Kalen stirred, his hand finding her waist like it belonged there. "Unless you tell us to go." Lyria sat up slowly and they let her, giving her space without truly leaving. The fire had burned down to embers. Outside, the wolves were stirring, their movements creating soft sounds in the snow. I need to understand, she said finally. This bond you keep talking about. How can you both? She gestured between them, helpless. Alphas don't share. It's not how it works. It is for us, Kaelin said. He and Rayleigh exchanged one of those looks, that silent communication that spoke of something deeper than words. We're twin-born. Twin-souled. Rayleigh leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Most twins are just siblings. Close but separate. We're not. When we were born, the pack shaman said we were one soul split between two bodies. We share everything, thoughts, feelings, instincts. What I feel, Kaelin feels. When he's wounded, I bleed. It's why we can both be alphas without tearing each other apart, Kaelin continued. We're not two competing for dominance. We're two halves of one whole. Lyria's heart hammered. What does that have to do with me? Because the bond doesn't work with just the two of us, Rayleigh said quietly. A twin soul bond requires three. Two halves in the center that holds them together. The heart of the triangle. You, Kaelin said, his gray eyes locked on hers. You're our third, Lyria. The moment we scented you, we knew. The bond recognized what our souls needed. What we've been waiting for. She shook her head. That's impossible. I'm just an omega who. You're ours, Rayleigh interrupted, his voice fierce. And we're yours. That's how it works. Complete and equal. No ownership. No submission. Just three souls bound as one. Our pack won't accept it, Kaelin said, and there was something hard in his voice now. Tradition says alphas take one mate. That twin bonds are myths told to children. They'll call it sacrilege. They'll demand we choose, Rayleigh added. One of us steps aside, lets the other claim you properly. Or we both walk away. Lyria's breath caught. And if you refuse? Then we're exiled, Kaelin said simply. Cast out. Pack ties severed. Everything we've known, everyone we've served, gone. You can't. The words burst from her. You can't give up everything for you. Rayleigh's hand found hers. We already have Lyria. The moment we crossed into this village, the moment we chose to stay to protect you, we made our choice. We would rather burn our world down than lose you, Kaelin said, his voice raw with certainty. We would rather be exiles with you than alphas without you. That's what the bond means. That's what you mean to us. Lyria looked between them, these two warriors who'd given up sleep in the snow for her comfort, who'd held her while she broke, who were offering her something she'd never thought possible. Freedom and belonging all at once. What if I'm not enough? She whispered. What if I can't be what you need? You already are, Rayleigh said. You always have been, Kaelin added. The bond doesn't lie. And neither do we. Outside, a wolf howled. Then another. The pack was waking. Inside, Lyria's wolf rose up and whispered one word, clear and sure. Yes. The day passed in a strange, suspended peace. The twins hunted. Lyria mended her cloak by the fire. They ate together as the sun began its descent, painting the snow in shades of amber and blood. Felt like a life she could have. Like a future that might be real. That's when the fear crept in. Lyria stood at the broken window as twilight deepened, staring out at the wolves resting in the snow, at Kaelin and Rayleigh checking the perimeter. Her chest felt tight, like something was squeezing her lungs. She'd spent so long running. So long protecting herself. And now she was standing still, letting them get close, and it terrified her more than anything Theron had ever done. Because this time she had something to lose. The door opened. Kaelin stepped inside, snowflakes caught in his dark hair. You're thinking too loud. I don't know how to do this, Lyria said without turning. How to let myself. Her voice cracked. What if I'm wrong? What if this bond is just another cage and I can't see it yet? Kaelin crossed to her in 3 strides. He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Look at me. She did. His storm-gray eyes held hers, fierce and unwavering. Every choice we've made since we found you has been to give you power, not take it. Every boundary you've set, we've honored. Every fear you've named, we've respected. His hand moved from her shoulder to rest over her heart, and she felt the heat of his palm through her clothes, felt her heartbeat thundering against it. We would burn our world down before we let you go. Not because we own you, but because we love you. The word hit her like a physical blow. Love. Not claim. Not possess. Not need. Love. Rayleigh appeared in the doorway and she knew he'd heard. Knew he felt everything Kaelin felt. He moved to her other side, his hand finding hers. We love you, Lyria Moon whisper, Rayleigh said, his voice rough with emotion. We loved you before we ever saw your face. Before we knew your name. The bond knew. And now we know. Lyria's throat closed. The words were there, burning inside her, terrifying and true. I'm afraid. So are we, Kaelin said. Loving someone means they can destroy you. We know that. And we choose it anyway. Because you're worth it, Rayleigh added. Because what we feel for you is stronger than fear. Lyria looked between them, these two halves of one impossible whole, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Something that had been locked and frozen for so long she'd forgotten it could still break. I think, her voice shook. I think I love you too. Both of you. And it terrifies me because I don't know how to. A howl shattered the night. All three of them froze. It wasn't one of their wolves. The sound was wrong, hostile, sharp with aggression and challenge. Then another howl joined it. And another. Coming from the south, from beyond the tree line. Kaelin's expression went dark. Rayleigh's hand tightened on hers. No, Lyria whispered, her blood turning to ice. No, they couldn't have. How many? Kaelin called out to the wolves outside. One of them shifted. A massive gray wolf becoming a scarred warrior. 8 alpha. Maybe more. They're circling. Rayleigh pulled Lyria behind him. Stay inside. They're here for me, she said, her voice hollow. They found me. Theron found me. Another howl closer now. Then a voice, human and cruel, carrying through the frozen air. Lyria Moon whisper. We know you're in there. Come out or we tear through everyone protecting you. Kaelin's hand went to the blade at his hip. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, Stormfang, the voice called back. Lyria's heart stopped. Because she knew that voice. Knew the alpha who'd been Theron's second, his enforcer, his hunting dog. They'd come to drag her home. And they'd kill anyone who stood in their way. The silver pine wolves emerged from the tree line like shadows given teeth. 8 of them in human form, armed with blades and fury. 24 more in wolf form, circling, snarling, their eyes reflecting firelight like burning coals. Kaelin and Rayleigh's pack moved to defensive positions, forming a barrier between the ruins and the intruders. Outnumbered. Outflanked. But unmoving. The enforcer stepped forward. A massive man with a broken nose and eyes like flint. Lyria remembered him. Garrick Ironjaw. Theron's right hand. The one who'd laughed when she begged them to let her go. This doesn't concern you, Stormfang, Garrick called out. The Omega is ours. Return her and we leave in peace. Kaelin stood at the center of his pack, Rayleigh at his side, both radiating lethal calm. She's not yours. She never was. Pack law says otherwise. Garrick's hand went to his blade. She was chosen. Marked for claiming. She ran and now she returns to face judgment. Judgment. Rayleigh's voice was ice and murder. You mean punishment. For daring to choose herself. For breaking sacred bonds. Garrick spat. For dishonoring her alpha and her pack. She had no alpha, Kaelin said, his voice carrying across the snow. She was never given a choice. What you call sacred we call slavery. Lyria pushed past the wolves guarding the door. Both twins moved to stop her, but she stepped between them, her chin raised, her fear buried beneath fury. I rejected the bond, she said, her voice steady. I rejected Theron. I reject your laws. I'm not going back. Garrick smiled, cruel and cold. You don't get to decide that, little Omega. She does, Rayleigh growled. And we stand with her. Then you stand against pack law. Against tradition. Garrick's eyes narrowed. Against your own people, Stormfang. Is one runaway Omega worth exile? Worth war? Kaelin moved in front of Lyria, his body a shield. She's worth everything. We lose more if we lose her, Rayleigh said, his hand finding hers behind Kaelin's back, squeezing once. So if you want her, you go through us. Garrick's smile vanished. So be it. The attack came fast and brutal. The silver pine wolves lunged forward in a coordinated strike. Kaelin's pack met them with savage force, the clearing erupting into chaos. Bodies collided. Blades flashed. Wolves tore into each other with fangs and claws, blood spraying across white snow in violent crimson arcs. Kalen fought like something feral, his blade singing as it cut through attackers. Rayleigh moved like water and lightning, every strike precise and devastating. But they were outnumbered, and the Silverpine pack was fresh, well-fed, trained for this. One of Kalen's wolves went down. Then another. The line was breaking. Lyria's heart hammered. She wanted to run. Wanted to fight. Wanted to do something other than watch them die for her. Rayleigh took a blade to the ribs, stumbling back with a grunt. Kalen roared and threw himself at the attacker, but another came from behind, bringing him to his knees with a strike to his leg. No! Lyria screamed. Garrick appeared through the chaos, his blade at Kalen's throat. Yield or I open him. Rayleigh tried to move, but 3 wolves pinned him, teeth at his neck and limbs. The clearing went silent except for ragged breathing and the whimpers of the wounded. Garrick looked at Lyria. "'Tis Omega. Come willingly or watch them bleed out in the snow." Kalen's eyes found hers, blood running down his face. "Don't. Lyria, don't." "We can take it," Rayleigh gasped. "We'll heal. Just run." But she couldn't. Not anymore. Not when running meant losing them. Lyria stepped forward, hands raised. "Let them go. I'll come with you. Just let them go." "Lyria, no." Both twins shouted in unison. Garrick smiled and grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "Smart girl." He started dragging her toward the tree line. Lyria looked back at Kalen and Rayleigh, both struggling against their captors, both bleeding, both screaming her name. And she realized something. She wasn't prey anymore. She was a wolf who'd finally found something worth fighting for. Garrick dragged her through the snow toward the tree line, his grip iron around her wrist. Behind her, Kalen and Rayleigh fought against their captors with desperate, feral rage. But the wolves holding them were too many, too strong. "Keep moving, Omega," Garrick growled. "Your alpha is waiting." As if summoned by the words, a howl split the night. Different from the others. Deeper. Commanding. The sound of it made every wolf in the clearing go still. Then he emerged from the shadows. Theron Blackmaw. He came in wolf form, a massive black beast easily twice the size of any other wolf present. His coat gleamed like oil in the moonlight, and his eyes were yellow fire, fixed on Lyria with possessive hunger. The air around him seemed to pulse with alpha dominance, a pressure that made her knees want to buckle. But she didn't. The wolves parted for him as he stalked forward, each step deliberate, predatory. When he reached the center of the clearing, he shifted. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded. And then he stood before her in human form, tall, scarred, grinning. "Hello, Lyria." His voice was smooth as poisoned honey. "Did you really think you could run from me?" "Let them go," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "They have nothing to do with this." "Oh, but they do." Theron circled her slowly like a wolf circling prey. "They've touched what's mine. Sheltered what I claimed. That requires punishment. I'm not yours. Not yet." He stopped in front of her, his hand reaching for her throat. "But once I mark you, once the bond takes hold, you will be. And you'll thank me for it." Lyria's eyes found Kalen and Rayleigh across the clearing. Both were still pinned, still bleeding, their eyes locked on her with anguish and fury. Kalen mouthed one word: "Fight." Rayleigh's lips formed another: "Choose." Something inside her, something that had been sleeping, cowering, hiding, woke up. She looked at Theron's hand inches from her throat. Looked at Garrick beside her, confident in his victory. Looked at the wolves who thought her beaten. They were wrong. "You want me," Lyria said quietly. "Then take me." Theron smiled, triumphant. His hand closed around her throat, and she shifted. The transformation came like lightning. Like fury given form. Her bones cracked and reformed in seconds. Silver fur erupted across her skin. Her wolf surged forward with a roar that shook the snow from the trees, and suddenly she wasn't small, wasn't prey, wasn't the Omega who ran. She was a wolf. Silver and fierce and done running. Theron's eyes widened in shock. He'd never seen her shift, never knew what she was capable of, and that hesitation cost him everything. Lyria lunged. Her jaws opened wide, aiming for his throat, for the vulnerable flesh that would end this, that would take back everything he'd tried to steal from her. She saw his hand come up too late. Saw the fear flash across his face. Saw Kaelin and Raylex breaking free of their captors, their own wolves rising. Time slowed. Her teeth were inches from his throat. The bond whispered yes. Her heart screamed finally. And she leaped. The world hung suspended, caught between what was and what would be. Between the Omega who fled and the wolf who fought. Between submission and choice. The snow fell silent around them. And Lyria Moonwhisper chose herself.